Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. Equilibrium has introduced us to the Acolytes of Baal, a group of dredgens that has been forged in the shadow of their Dark Master and the Barrent Imperium. Whilst the Barrent Imperium are at the heart of this faction's power, it seems like most of the dredgens supersede the majority of those amongst their ranks. Baal may be at the apex of their hierarchy, but Seer, the second dredgen amongst their ranks as best we can tell, is a figure who would have been equally worthy of our concern had he survived our encounter. Today we're going to talk about Dredgen Seer, explore his place within the Barrent Imperium, and reveal the plans that he was close to enacting. Before we start, we should clear something up. Seer is a human, or at least a human analog such as an Awoken or an Exo. We don't know their exact species of origin, and by the time we find them in the darkest chamber of the Malphas Contemptus, it doesn't seem to matter. According to one of the sources we'll be leaning on heavily in this investigation, they have transformed by their actions, and whatever they once were, now they are something completely other. This is even easier to confirm based on the fact that, well, they float, and they don't seem to have legs anymore. They're closer to a hive wizard than they are a person. And to be really clear, yes, we can confirm that they are at very least a human analog because of the fact that they have 4 fingers and a thumb on each hand. Scions and wizards and Eliksni all have fewer. Not to mention, of course, the Eliksni have multiple hands. So yes, this is a human being. And I don't think I need to explain to any of you that it's not a Barrant. Well, I hope at least I don't. Despite the use of arc power that they have, it seems fairly clear, thanks to the words of Arnor Mahal, that Seer and his apprentice Harrow are not Guardians. That's unsurprising for Harrow, who is a Barrent Cabal, but for Seer, that distinction I think is rather important.
Baal is recruiting dredgens, not a light bearer among them. One is after the relics in Venus's Praxic Temple, including a dossier of active Praxic agents. That information in the Imperium's hands puts the entire Praxic Order at risk. With them, every guardian of the city. Take down the Imperial dredgens. Save the Order. Show me the fire that burns within you.
This raises the interesting question of how Seer acquired arc powers in the first place. After all, Seer isn't a Guardian. I think at this moment it's important to know that arc powers can come from other sources than just the light alone. For example, look at Matter Spark. It's a power from the Nine. It just manipulates an element of the physical universe through that dark matter-based power. Just because a thing has acquired arc power doesn't mean that it comes from a light bearer. We don't have a concrete understanding of how that power was assembled, but I think that the likely answer is that it's something to do with the power they acquired from either the Taken or from Six. Don't take my word on it though. There are so many things that we just don't understand, but I will do my best to investigate. There is of course always the because video game explanation, which, I mean, yeah, it's Palpatine. Obviously it's meant to be Palpatine. What we do know is this. Seer is a dredgen who has been immersing themselves and the various acolytes under Baal's command in the shadowy power of the Taken. The suspected purposes of such a plan are so that they might build a throne world within the Ascendant Plane and achieve that small degree of immortality that comes from it. Their actual purpose is far, far more dangerous. This information exists thanks to the existence of Enforcer Rao, the leader of the Totality Division. They've made it clear that whilst they were wearing the Imperium's colors, that they were not loyalists to its ideals. In fact, with the expansion on Dredgen Seer's story, we now fully understand a little of why Rao is the rebel that she is. Rao would receive a series of communications from other scions within the Barrent Imperium. In fact, it was her expressed mission to try and save the scions within its clutches from the Imperium's own machinations and those of the Dredgens. One scion in particular need of saving appeared to be one Yetik Ein, a scion operant posted alongside Dredgen Harrow and Dredgen Seer on the Malphus Contemptus. Her messages would be relayed to Rao, but they would also seemingly be recovered in the process of our assault on the Dredgen-controlled command vessel. They're relayed to us in the Sage Protector set from the dungeon itself. The short version of our story is that we see Yetik Ein being slowly pressed down and her thoughts being eroded. The process doesn't seem to be one of corruption, so much as it seems to be of hollowing. I don't know if this is a deliberate thing, but given the nature of the 7th Book of Sorrow and its 13th understanding, that to rend one's enemies is to see them as objects hollow of spirit and meaning, and the demands of the process of the unmaking ritual, it is all a possibility. I want to save some of the logs of Yetik Ein for when we talk about Dredgen Harrow. A lot of these logs that you'll see here pertain to Dredgen Seer and his operations specifically. That's what we're going to talk about today. All this starts with the first time that Yetik Ein made contact with Rao. They reached out with the realization that they needed to tell someone about Seer's operation, but they needed to be as discreet as possible. They encoded their messages in quartz crystal, as opposed to sending them via telepathic communications as they normally might. Such was the fear of the Scions. Such was the fear of the men they served under, the Dredgens. The first of the messages from Yetik Ein to Rao reads as follows. From the mind and hand of Yetik Ein, operant 2nd rank aboard the Malphus Contemptus, loyal to the Barrent Imperium, keyed to the sign of the Y Goblet with which our ancestors worshipped. Enforcer Rao. We knew each other briefly in the old Empress's service. You are still thought of with respect and envy on the Malphus, and there is a flavor to your name, an undertone that never rises to the surface, that makes me suspect I could talk to you and be heard. The temporal isolation is difficult. A dry-eyed, blank-minded time. No medium to carry our thoughts to one another. When we emerge, I'm thirsty. I want only to drink of Sol's living richness. I want to know my mind is not a dry seed rolling around an empty case. But this ship floats in poison, touching the mist around the Dredgen and his students. First hurts, then numbs, then compels. The Premier's Dredgen is always palpable with it, his iron pain and burning anger. And below him, untouchable immensity. The Valus Dredgen Seer immerses himself in it. We Scion operants and engineers build machines so he may approach it and hide his death in another world. These are words I cannot speak even by mind. I lay them silently in optical quartz and send them to you in hopes you will listen and speak in turn to our cousins. I close this missive in hopes that this will reach you in safety and secrecy, and that your reputation for the same is not misplaced. So before the juiciest of stuff, let's break down a few bits from the top that are relevant but not directly. The Y Goblet referenced here by Yetik Ein is part of an ancient Scion faith. It was first mentioned in the lore by one of Callus's counselors in the Leviathan called Match. The concept essentially refers to the idea of ancestor gods in the context of the Scions. This is a pretty consistent thing within their lore, but it's also not a universally held belief amongst their number if memory serves correctly. The so-called Malphus that's mentioned is no doubt a reference to the Barrent Imperium command vessel that we board in the course of the dungeon. Remember, this is not the first vessel. This is the larger second one that it pulls up alongside. It's also known again as the Malphus Contemptus, and it's another example of the Barrent Imperium using 6 to trap themselves within a temporal pocket in order to build up their strength. As much as it might have been used to build up Nightfall Station, clearly Baal and his acolytes were using it to build their own strength, and the strength of their order, not to mention to enact plans that normally might take decades worth of time. In particular, Yetik Ein makes reference to the idea that Dredgen Seer was building his strength in order to create a throne world. This explains why in the final encounter of the dungeon, we're constantly shifting between real space and the Ascendant Plane. We also know, thanks to this message, how high up the hierarchy of the Cabal the Dredgens rank. Dredgen Seer is referred to as Valus Dredgen Seer, implying that there are very few individuals above them within the actual military hierarchy of the Barrent Imperium at large. As a reminder, there are 4 major ranks mentioned within the Cabal hierarchy as per typical: Primus, Valus, Val, and Brachus. Vals and Brachuses will be below a Valus in station, and only a Primus, a commander of a legion, is above them as far as military ranks are concerned. The title of Premier is an invented one which Loom has taken upon himself, but we can assume that he's ascendant above all ranks in the Barrent Imperium, with the exception of Dredgen Baal himself. I don't think we can confirm this for sure, but this might be the highest ranking member of the Imperium that we've killed. Unless somehow there's more to their leadership structure, we might have just killed their third in command. The untouchable immensity that was mentioned by Yetik Ein seems to be referring to 6, or perhaps the Lord of Every Nothing, although 6, I feel, is much more likely, especially given what's mentioned later on, and with the knowledge of the final plans of Dredgen Seer. For the moment, our first hints are the way in which it's described by a scion of all things. Scions think in terms of thought, not the physical world. Their gods are god thoughts. The physical world around them is not as pressing as the peripheral psychic energy that they perceive. For Yetik Ein to describe a mind as titanic is all the hint that we needed that this is some kind of supernatural force on the other side. But then again, there is much more clarifying information to be found later. Speaking of which, let's jump ahead to entry 3 within the Sage Protector set, where we see another message that is sent between Yetik Ein and Rao, a point at which they're reaching out in an attempt to get more information to Rao herself. It concerns both Dredgen Harrow and Dredgen Seer, and it talks about their impact on the crew of the Malphus Contemptus, as well as what Seer was more specifically doing with his time. Take a listen. From the mind and hand of Yetik Ein, keyed to the sign of the single eye which sees beyond all. Enforcer. Seer listens to the whisper in the dark and speaks to it in turn. His named apprentice shouts at it to demand power. His students learn to bear its voice or die. We avoid the Dredgens for fear of the shadow around them. No scion has volunteered to study with them yet, and none of us want to be cut down for their practice. I requested any duty that will send me away from the Malphus for a time, but now that Harrow is leading expeditions, there is nowhere out of their reach. There is nowhere to hide on a harvester. We were on Mercury, where the sun burns so fiercely I thought the sand would turn to glass. I could feel the life of this system again, wrapping around us all in its warm, humming threads. I felt the other scions and Barrant in my mind. I felt light-bearers laughing and fighting together somewhere distant. Staring into the sun would burn my eye out, I knew it, but I was ready to pay the cost for its warmth. Then Harrow wrapped shadow around him, and every legionary swayed, every scion flinched. I looked toward him. I couldn't help it. I looked away from the sun. Here, Yetik Ein tells us some more crucial information. For Seer to listen to the whisper in the dark and to hear it speak back is something characteristic of both the Lord of Every Nothing and of Six. Him then teaching his students to either bear its power or die is another great hint as to the specificity of it all. In the case of the Lord of Every Nothing, you might be able to make a contrasting case of it versus what happened with the Winnower, and in that case, the Winnower was able to communicate with Oryx through an unborn ogre that it possessed with its own personality, even if only briefly. This then might be how Dredgen Seer was getting his acolytes to communicate and to bear the voice of the whispers. In the case of Six, we need only look at Dredgen Bale. He has channeled the voice of Six, and if his students are also doing this, then their power is being learned directly from Six itself. This might also explain why some of them simply die. I mean, if you've seen any of the lore about Dredgen Bale, and if you've heard his words in the campaign, you understand that he is not exactly what he used to be anymore. And if what he was once human, he certainly isn't human anymore thanks to the changes that Six has made. The aforementioned shadow around the Dredgens is clearly a nod to the mechanic of the dungeon, where you can build up reserves of the shadow from those who have immersed themselves within it, be they lackeys, unnamed apprentices, or even Dredgen Harrow and the various others throughout the dungeon. The shadow power is also clearly taken in origin, given its appearance and its ties to the Ascendant Plane. Its power to compel and wound is also interesting, but I think the compel side of it is the most telling. To compel something is to directly interpose your will upon it. That is very Taken in Origins. After all, the Taken themselves only crave a strong will to lead them. Very Lord of Every Nothing of you, very heretical of you, very much embracing the darkness. There's also a note to be made here about the various unnamed apprentices within the dungeon. Whilst they're nobodies in the sense that they are literally nameless characters, they're nameless in the sense that they've not yet been granted a title. This implies that they're in the process of learning to become a Dredgen. When one becomes a Dredgen, they forfeit all ties to their past, and when the ritual of unmaking is complete, they officially adopt a Dredgen name and title as a sign of their remaking and evolution. So all of these unnamed apprentices aren't just unnamed for the sake of nobody wanting to name them, they are literally unnamed because they are untitled at this moment. As time went on within the Malphas Contemptus, there was clearly a shift. For one, Seer killed an engineer scion and Yetic Iron was forced to replace them. For another, at this point in time, Yetic Iron was starting to feel the crushing mental effects of working alongside Seer's machinations. From the mind and hand of Yetic Iron, keyed to the sign of our people's shared soul. Rao. Dredgen Seer has killed an engineer and elevated me in her place. My thoughts are waveforms flattened by the weight of his throne. I barely have the strength to imprint this on quartz. I hope it's readable. I hope you're still reading it. I can barely make my hands work at my assigned tasks. I'm almost ready to stop trying. Seer swells with greater power daily, even as he loses his form. He's fraying like an old rope, growing stronger, mouthing along to the whispers. I would wish for Seer to tear himself apart, but I fear something worse would take his place. Something that will make use of a dry seed on dead ground. Something that is not the bird's heart will fit itself back into the bird's ribcage. His project is more than I thought it was. It's more than a hiding place for one small death. It's a door. And there's something on the other side. A thought, too big to fit in my head. If I tried to think it, my every cell would burst. I don't know how Bale is still alive. And this is the passage where I think we can confirm that the Whispers and whatever's being channeled by Dredgen Seer is in fact Six. We know for a fact that Bale regularly hosts Six as a vessel for its voice. This only seems to imply the degree to which Six has immersed itself in the Ascendant Plane and the powers of the Taken. But also, one should note that as best we understand, the effects of these transmutations on the Self when one becomes a vessel for the Nine are permanent. Here, we also see that Dredgen Seer is starting to unravel. Literally. He has clearly been channeling the Whispers of Six to a degree that makes him no longer recognizable as what he was before. This is to say that to a certain extent, his former species doesn't matter as much, or at all. He was perhaps human or awoken or exo, but now he is different, changed, reshaped, reformed. Seer's ultimate plan has also been revealed in this particular entry here. Seer is, in fact, not simply trying to make a throne world to enhance his already significant power. Seer is trying to create a throne world as a door for Six. His throne world would be the door, and it would open upon dimension. And one day, had we left Seer to his own devices, his master would have stepped through. And then we would know doom itself. This then also shows us the plan for Six generally reflected once more. It has been consistently attempting to open up a doorway into the Ascendant Plane so that it might escape our reality and form worlds for itself. In this sense, Bale was an orchestrator, and Harrow was nothing more than an afterthought. But Seer is an artist, carving their work from ruin in the Ascendant Plane's flesh, all for an audience of one. The last message of Yetik Ein was found by us, and was never delivered by Rao. It shows the desperate state in which Yetik Ein found herself. The final words are fearful, lonely, and have a weight of tiredness to them that tells me that her ultimate fate was likely death and expiration beneath the colossal psychic might of Six's presence. It reads as follows. Unkeyed, incomplete, unsent. Can you hear it, Rao? The thought like a gravity well, pressing down till we become diamond? I can't open the door. The bar's too heavy and my arms aren't strong enough. My mind isn't big enough. I think there was life in this system once. I don't know where it is. I can't feel it anymore. I walked into a room I thought was empty, and there were 6 legionaries in it playing cards. I didn't feel their minds. They spoke and laughed and shouted at me to get out. And it was like clay figures speaking and laughing and shouting. There's a voice, and it's getting louder. I think I might die trying to hear it. Will you tell the others about it, Rao? I've trusted your silence so far. I hope I can trust your speech. I wish you were here, in the Whispers, with me. Yetik Ein, unfortunately, is undoubtedly dead, lost to the mental barotrauma of Six's colossal thoughts. Yetik Ein could bear the weight of its presence no easier than we could bear the weight of an entire moon on our chest. And so, likely, she is dead. This is the result of Seer's experimentation. A half-formed throne world, and 1,000 dead scions and Barant trailing in his wake. And perhaps the worst part of it all is that Dredgen Bale was there all along to encourage Seer's appetite for experimentation with the Taken.
Fear not, Seer. Your investigations into the Taken will be rewarded with new strength. Be a Dredgen. Don't step back from the abyss. You can't allow your latest apprentice to outpace you, after all. Remember what the books say. Ignorance is not passive. It is a living, aggressive failure that angers the hearts of all who seek to evolve.
Seer's legacy will thankfully be short-lived, but the problem is that Dredgen Bale is still out there. There is no shortage of individuals who look at the city and its guardians with some ire. Making Dredgens appears to be costly and unsubtle. The cost is paid in time and lives and sanity and personhood. But with vessels trapped in deep space such as the Malphas Contemptus, and with the interference from Six potentially creating pockets of time dilation, there is always a chance that Seer was just the first. After all, we bore witness to so many within that place. Do the dungeon for yourself and tell me how many nameless apprentices you dispatch in a single run, assuming you don't wipe at all. By my count, it's a bare minimum of 11 nameless apprentices if you one-phase Seer. The likely number is potentially far higher, something akin to 26, 30, 35 if you do a lot of rotations on contest. There are undoubtedly other Dredgens. The question simply remains, how many more of these nameless apprentices are out there, and how many more Dredgens, true, bona fide Dredgens, are there out there? Are there any more Seers, or Harrows, or Bales in the cold darkness of space? Anyway, that's all from me for now. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll be getting a video out about Dredgen Harrow at some point soon as well. The script is written, and I'm going to get it recorded next. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like and leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. Also, if you are so inclined, go ahead and let me know if you want me to go and do a run-through of this dungeon, perhaps with a few people who might be interested in the lore tidbits as we go. If you do want to see that kind of live lore walkthrough, I'd very much be happy to oblige. That being said, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.